and he joins us this morning on the Harbor One hotline. And Mike, that team that we saw last night was not the Bruins team that we saw for most of the regular season.
No, it wasn't. But listen, I have to tell you, I listened to your show yesterday for a little while, out doing some errands. And the depth of knowledge about human anatomy and biology you guys displayed was mind-boggling. I mean, who knew to differentiate the upper body from the lower body by the pubic region?
Yeah, that's
I mean, why spend $90,000 on Harvard Medical School when you can listen to Wiggy talk about biology? You should be a weekly segment, Wiggy's Medical Moment.
Wigology, yes, Wigology.
Not to mention the fascinating history of waxing that Greg invented, and the couples waxing session with Santo and Courtney. I was riveted.
What's your guess when it comes to the injury? Where it is and how serious it is?
I don't know. Nobody knows. Everybody's speculating. It clearly is based on what I saw of his solo workout. It's not great.
Yeah.
He didn't look good. He was really struggling to move freely, and beyond that, I can't tell you. It clearly is not an illness. They finally fessed up to that, but when he was in the locker room, talking to everybody, you knew right away that they couldn't be that stupid to let a guy with a flu bug, or worse, into the locker room to spread it around. So it's been an injury from the beginning. Don't know when it happened. Was it in Montreal? I guess we'll find that out, months from now. But it clearly is a problem for him, and therefore a problem for the team.
Now, we've been arguing, Mike. I don't know how much you listened today. Greg and I have been going back and forth because Greg believes that you can just replace Patrice Bergeron.
Nope.
Curtis and I are on the other side. How concerned are you if Bergeron isn't able to play the rest of the series?
Didn't say that.
Oh, that's what you said.
No.
Are you done squabbling here,
yes,
or should we talk?
Not really,
okay,
no.
good.
I'm just trying to ask you a question, Mike.
We'll stretch it out till the end of the show.
I think that based on the first two games, actually, because the first game, the Bruins didn't play well, and they won. They got away with it. They got away with a kind of a sloppy effort and got a fluky goal and managed to win. Game two, I think Florida got out of game one, thought that they could play with Boston. They added Sam Bennett to the lineup, and they were loaded. They were ready to go. And the Bruins, I think, took a bite of entitlement pie. We won the first one. We didn't play that well. We'll win the second one. I mean, why wouldn't you believe that way when you've played and won all these games all year long? They've opened the door to trouble. Florida played hard. They were the better team. There was no question about it in last night's game. I don't think Allmark was particularly great, but I don't think he was bad either. I don't think he saw a lot of the shots. They made good use of their opportunities. I thought it was just a game where one team came ready to play, and the other one felt, based on their recent past, was entitled to a win, and it doesn't work that way.
Since we're keeping score, the hockey guru over here suggested earlier that Brad Marchand was not the best player on the ice for the Bruins last night. Would you agree with that?
I don't think Brad has played to the top of his game for a long time now. I mean, he had that stretch of, 16 games without a goal. I mean, that's he kind of laughed it off, and that's great. I think he should be able to do that given the fact that they were winning all these games. And he's not going to be the same player without the guy that he's used in the middle of his line for a half a century, it seems. So, but I don't think he's moving as freely. He's better, I think, in recent games, but still there's something a little bit off about his game, and that should, along with the absence of Bergeron, that should be very concerning to Bruins fans.
That team had 15 turnovers last night. From the coach's perspective, what does Jim Montgomery do about that?
You know what? Not just turnovers, but turnovers by guys that don't normally make turnovers. Their best defensemen, for example, Lindholm, for example, Charlie McAvoy. I was a little disappointed after the game, and they interviewed a couple of guys, and they just sort of poo-pooed the loss. It was a big statement by Florida. I guess you got to move on. You got to reset the button. But I would have liked to heard somebody say, "Geez, that puck I had along the wall in the defensive zone, and I just coughed it up, and they scored. It was all my fault. I got to be better than that."
Yeah.
No, well, I didn't hear that. It was like, "Oh, it's this playoff series, and we're going to move on. We go to the next one." And wait a second. It's not time to press panic, but it's time to press wake up, and that's I think where they are.
Mike, you bring up entitlement, but we've heard a lot from Montgomery and other players that nerves are there that I don't think that the guys expected to be there. So when you look at the turnovers and when you look at that statement win by Florida, how does Montgomery make sure that the nerves don't now seep into a series now on the road without Patrice potentially?
If this group, which has been in many playoff situations, most of them, if they are having trouble with nerves, God knows what would happen when they got to a Stanley Cup final. You got to be bigger than that. You got to be mentally tougher than that. Okay, it's a big moment. Deal with it. I mean, oh my God, what do you want, a stroke on the back? I mean, you want to be your pillow and your binky? I mean, wake up. It's time to get intense. It's time to get focused in. It's time to, the nerves should last for, the first shift or two, and then you're in the rhythm of the game, and you got a job to do, and you got to get the job done properly.
Well, couldn't the nerves be from Patrice not being there with them?
Oh, please. I mean, geez, what the hell? I mean, he's going to go sooner or later. They might as well get over it. If he goes earlier than later, but you can't. He's not. He's not Yoda. I mean, give the rest of the team some credit. They can play pretty well too, and they have without him. But it's too bad that he's not able to be 100% and contributing. But they've dealt with injuries all year long, or little nicks and cracks here and there. But they got to get past this. I mean, if he comes back, it's a great boost for them, no doubt about it. But okay, deal with the reality.
Mike, now, one thing that Montgomery said after the game, and was a little concerning to me, was that there are going to be changes everywhere. I don't really know what he means by that. But on the broadcast, they talked briefly about any chance, and I don't think they should, but any chance you see Swayman start Game 3?
I heard somebody talk about that. I can't believe it. I mean, this was a bunch of goals scored on Allmark. Most of them were great shots. A lot of them he couldn't see. He usually has a beat on it, but there was a lot of traffic, particularly on Montour's goals. They were just no way he could get a line of vision on it, and I don't think that's necessary. And I actually, there are going to be changes everywhere. Doesn't that smack you of a little bit of panic?
Yeah.
I mean, that's what Miggy was saying.
I don't think that. I never thought Mr. Rogers would be panicky, but that doesn't sound.
You did wish diarrhea upon him.
Yeah. And then the whole locker room got it, so that's basically on you. Thanks, that's on you. That's the Milbury jinx.
But listen, it's man up time. This is the playoffs. Yeah. So you guys think you were going to be like? You think you were just going to get the duck boats out in the first round? This is a long, long road, and I've been saying this despite the fantastic record. Cup or bust is still a lot of pressure on people, but you got to deal with the realities of each game as they come. Last night they got a dose of big time reality by a team that won the President's Trophy last year and looked like it found a way to say to itself, "Hey, I think we can beat these guys."
Yeah.
And when you have that, holy smoke, you better be ready for games in Florida. You better be on your toes in this one, because there's nobody going to hand you the silver chalice.
Well, that's what I have been suggesting to Wiggy, that he fails to comprehend, which is, yes, Patrice Bergeron, as long as you have to play without him, it's a loss. However, where are the guys that are stepping up in the NHL playoffs, as you have to do, to replace him? And Taylor Hall is like he's a no-show.
Didn't he look lost on the bench? He looked like he was like glazed over. I felt he was particularly, out of it in that one. But I also think I thought, as I mentioned, Lindholm wasn't very good. McAvoy wasn't very good.
Yeah.
I mean, there was a whole cast of characters that weren't very good.
Dare I bring this guy's name up, and there'll be some kind of a confrontation at the Squire in Chatham, but where was Jake DeBrusk last night? There have to be guys that step up when you lose your captain.
They weren't ready to play, Greg. They won game one, and it was handed to them in a lot of ways. Florida was probably a tad better than them, and they took that knowledge that they could play with Boston, and they used it to motivate themselves to get ready for game two. And they were by far the more effective team in game two. The Bruins need I don't know if the shakeup that Montgomery is suggesting is gonna do it. They need a mental shakeup. They need you're not going to get this done because you think you're going to get it done. You're not going to get it done because you won a whole bunch of games in the regular season. This is a whole different kettle of fish.
You got in that third period, you got four guys bumping into each other trying to get the puck in the Florida zone. It was embarrassing.
It looked like Hunter Henry and Jonnu Smith on a route last year with the Patriots.
Well, this is where you have more than Bergeron. He's supposed to be have led by example. You've got McAvoy, who people think might be the next captain. You've got Lindholm, who's been terrific all year long. You've got you guys mentioned DeBrusk. He's got to step up to the plate. And Taylor Hall, if he doesn't come back to be an effective player, it's going to be embarrassing for him. And this is sort of the run of his career. What could have and should have been for Taylor Hall. He's got an opportunity here. Make the most of it. Don't shrink from the pressure. Embrace it.
Mike, any shot you believe that the Bruins are in danger of actually losing this series?
I believe they've opened the door to questions. And I believe that the questions are going to be asked of themselves. I mean, Florida has become a different animal now. I mean, they had talent. They've got a tough guy in Tkachuk. The Sam Bennett that they added to the lineup, man, what a difference maker he was. And when you sort of gain that mental traction as a team, they have their hands full right now. That doesn't mean I'm not waving a white flag by any means here, but if they had won that game and played well last night, I would have been happy because they would be on their way to maybe an early playoff win and a chance to rest up and a chance to get a guy like Bergeron back and healthy. They wasted that opportunity. They wasted last night's game. That's what that was. It was a waste.
When it comes to Montgomery and Bergeron and the way they interact, because we were discussing what happened at the end of the season in Montreal, whether he should have been playing. Who, in your mind, who's making that decision when it comes to that player?
If the coach yields control to the player, he's screwed. I don't care who it is. You have exceptions to how you treat people. I mean, Belichick I'm sure didn't treat Brady the same way he did Wiggy. I just know I wouldn't have.
Yeah, I got a lot more juice, Mike. Remember, I was early in Brady's career.
So Bergie's going to get treated a little bit differently, and he's going to be asked some questions, but in the end, you have to ride with your instincts and the knowledge that you have from the training staff about a player's health or your feeling about the lineup in general. If you yield control to either the manager or the players below you, you're screwed. You're no coach. You're just a blow the whistle guy, a guy that changes lines. And if you can't manage the people that you're supposed to manage, then you're not very good at your job.
Mike, I know that every game is important. Everybody says that. But when you look at Game 3 in a 1-1 series in Florida with a team that looks like now they believe in themselves, how important is this game for the Bruins not to fall behind in this series 2-1?
It's the opportunity to they got a bitch slapped. And now they need to know that it's time to wake up, and that's the opportunity in front of them. The win or lose, they have to play like they played for most of the 82 games in the regular season. But as I mentioned, this is a whole different game with a level of intensity that's nowhere near regular season intensity. Did you see the puck possession that the Bruins have displayed all year last night? No. Did you see the good outlet passes? No, because Florida attacked and the Bruins weren't ready. They weren't quick. They weren't sharp. And so if they're going to get back to where they want to be, then it's going to start between the ears. And that's where Jim Montgomery should be concerned. Not about whether Patrice can play or not. He's got to figure out what happened to each one of these guys. He's got to be patrolling the plane on the way to Florida. He's got to get into their heads in the pregame skate. He's got to know which guys are ready and which guys may be a little skittish and maybe a little bit, antsy because they made mistakes, and which ones need, a size 10 up their rear.
And maybe Pasternak could put the one-timer on the net during the power play. Maybe that would help.
Yeah, listen, there was a train full of passengers last night. So, I'm not going to point fingers too directly at everybody, although we already did with Taylor Hall and DeBrusque. But I just, I think that there was a whole bunch of people that weren't ready to play. And if they don't come ready to play with a level of commitment to pace and physicality, then whatever fate awaits them, they deserve.
So in your mind, do you think Patrice travels or no?
I wish. Ask Wiggy. He's the doctor. I don't know. I don't know. I just don't know. I hope so. If he's injured, and I guess that's what it is, I would think he might travel. But if it's really, not feeling very good, maybe he's better off sticking around with somebody on the training staff. And you know what? I didn't like the one-on-one with the media showing him how he was skating and stuff. Couldn't they hide him someplace in some MDC rink so nobody could know what he was looking like? But anyway, it's, what's he supposed to be? Stand up on the bench and start giving a Newt Rockne speech? He can't do that every night. It's not, lovey-dovey isn't going to work right now. It's going to be elbow grease.
The series is now tied at 1. Mike Milbury, we will talk to you again next week. Thank you for joining us this morning.
All right, adios.